Thank you, Dr. Young M. That was so beautiful and soothing and uplifting all at the same time. Thank you, Mignon, for introducing our hymns, and thank you, Joy, for beginning our service in such a warm and inviting way. As we light our chalice flame this morning, may we think of those who have provided light for our path, whose footsteps have shown us a path to follow, and who at times have carried us on our path. This month, I wanted to engage with you, the members of this fellowship, in a dialogue about belief and faith. And I wanted to, first of all, widen our understanding of what those words mean, because they are used in very simplistic and narrow ways in our culture very often. And to begin that process of thinking of a broader way of understanding faith and belief, I call upon the help of Patricia Monahan, who died, I believe, about 10 years ago, but she was an Irish poet, a writer, an influential figure in contemporary women's spirituality, and an adept writer about the earth and Celtic mythology. But this poem I will read for you today is entitled Things to Believe in. Trees in general, oaks especially, bur oaks that survive fire in particular, and the generosity of apples. Seeds, all of them, carrots too, winged maple, doubled beet, peach kernel, the inevitability of change. Frog song in spring, cattle lowing on the farm across the hill. The melodies of sad old songs. Comfort of savory soup, sweet iced fruit, the aroma of yeast, a friend's voice, hard work. Seasons, bedrock, lilacs, moon shadows under the ash grove. Something breaking through. So ends the poem, and in a few moments, I look forward to discussing faith development with you. Emily, thank you for that beautiful and powerful story with that very important message. We love you as you are. And I would like to thank Mignon for once again introducing beautiful and interesting hymns to us. And today was particularly noteworthy for me because Shelley Jackson was the writer, and I remember her from years ago at the Mountain, and when she had a position there, and the many conversations I had with her and her great dedication to our movement. And I would also like to thank Tom Racono for his presentation. And I'm so thankful to all the people that make presentations about this very important mini capital campaign. But Tom has been on the front lines for years in trying to make sure that the building and the property remain a viable place to meet and to be. And I'm so thankful for him and his work. A friend who played a significant role in my life over many years died about 2 or 3 years ago. I will call him Bob. Let me tell you a story about him. I first met Bob when I was a new UU minister, trying to find my way and trying to seek an orientation in this new world of UU ministry. Bob was a minister, a teacher, a group therapist. He taught at several seminaries in and around San Francisco, and he spoke extensively in UU congregations across this country. And he spoke to Episcopalian groups and to some Catholic groups, to Quaker groups, to Unity Church groups. He spoke in this country extensively and in Canada, a little bit in Europe and in Australia. His topic was religion, spirituality, and psychology. They were his main focus, but he seemed to be a scholar of everything. He understood spirituality as an innate yearning for wholeness, healing, health, and well-being. It involved the mind, the body, the emotions, the total self. It was an organic, natural process necessary to our well-being, not something supernatural or imposed from without. Bob's understanding of spirituality was independent of all religious traditions and authorities. His knowledge was wide-ranging and remarkable in its depth and breadth. He seemed to be like one of the rabbis of old who spent night and day learning and studying and trying to clarify the nature of wisdom. Yet Bob was completely unattached to any traditional religious group or religious institution. And I saw a parallel between the devout people I had known growing up in the South and him, but he was devout in a completely new way. And it was this combination of the novel and the old that was so engrossing to me. As a young minister who did not live outside the South until I was 28, he was exotic and a pioneer in new fields, new territories that I had never imagined. I admired him, I loved him, I trusted him, I was impressed by him. As years passed, I got to know him better, and I noticed that he was on a continuous quest and eager to help others on that quest, to find things that could be entrusted with this sacred journey of finding wholeness, integrity, coherence, and well-being. The flip side of that, however, which I began to see more often as I got to know him better, was a strong animus towards anything or anybody he perceived to be an authority, and a tendency at times to get into unnecessary conflicts with those who he saw in this manner. One day I was with a group of people that Bob was speaking to, and I learned something about him that gave me a greater understanding of him and who he was. When Bob was a child, he lived with his family in New York State. His mother was very active in political protest of the 1960s. And in this context, something happened that would break apart their family. During the late 1960s, Bob's mother was targeted by the federal government's COINTEL program, which some of you might be aware of. The COINTEL program operated between 1956 and 1971 in this country. It was a series of covert and illegal activities conducted by the FBI aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting domestic American political organizations. And while the FBI today denounces this part of their history, it nevertheless had a big impact on many people. The COINTEL program targeted groups and individuals the FBI deemed subversive, which included feminist organizations, anti-Vietnam War organizations, activists in the civil rights movement, environmental organizations, and several others. But here's the thing that tore Bob's family apart. Bob's father was an informant for the FBI against his mother, against Bob's mother. Bob's father was spying on Bob's mother in the sense of providing the FBI information, and through his mother, her circle of friends, many of whom were highly active in the anti-Vietnam War movement. When this was discovered, it split the family, and Bob and his mother moved to the West Coast and began a life there. How does a person recover from this level of betrayal? As I gained years of experience as a UU minister, I began to understand the bond that Bob had with UU audiences, and realized and saw and observed that it was, to some extent, due to a shared sense of being betrayed by people who they had trusted. Distrust, even a sense of betrayal, is a powerful force in the lives of many people. Indeed, for many of us in the UU community, it was distrust or a feeling of being let down or even betrayed, which led many of us to come out from our religious communities of origin into the fold of a UU community. Bob's story is therefore a very severe example of something that touches the lives of many UUs at some level. I am one of them. I, like many of you, am a come-outer, a refugee from conventional and traditional religious groups that I believed in and trusted. I, like you, I hope, am deeply, deeply grateful for the freedom to speak one's mind, the freedom to think, the freedom to be as we truly are, free from dogmatism or rigid constraints. And we rightly cherish this. We clearly, furthermore, see the damage done by dogmatism, by religion generally, by religious orthodoxy in particular. But I do believe we do not clearly see the difficulties created by allowing doubt and skepticism to so color our lives individually and collectively. and to dominate, I believe too often, how we define ourselves as a group. And we compensate for this absence, if I might say so, of spiritual content by emphasizing community, by emphasizing friendship, by emphasizing love for one another, and by emphasizing social activism of every imaginable type. And I think that's wonderful and that's great. But the absence of what is sometimes called faith development does not remove the need for it. Religious dogmatism is an inauthentic answer to authentic needs. Faith development is an attempt to develop trust in what gives us meaning, purpose, direction, resilience, wholeness, and courage. Whatever gives us those things is faith development. These needs do not vanish the day that we see through the emptiness of religious dogmatism. We are not going to be attractive to the general public on the scale we need to be unless we define ourselves in positive ways, which provide for people a meaningful content of what faith development means, which resonate with people and fulfill their genuine needs. I share with you a very simple and partial definition of faith development that we can use perhaps for the beginning of a conversation. Faith development involves cultivating our capability to be compassionate, empathetic, and peaceful towards ourselves, towards others, towards the larger world, towards the earth, and towards life itself. It involves looking at our encounters daily, at how we live, at the decisions we make, for ways to express and experience, both for ourselves and others, greater empathy, greater compassion, greater peace. It is the process of bringing, however we can, into our lives more empathy, more compassion, and more peace. But this process, of course, does not occur in a vacuum. For at the same time, we have our lives to live. We have responsibilities to meet, hardships to face, duties to attend to, bills to pay for, expectations of others to navigate, pressures and challenges of life daily, and on and on. So faith development is really about dealing with this pursuit of compassion and peace and empathy, and at the same time, adapting to and dealing with the realities of life. It is a dance rather than a march. It is jazz rather than a hymn. But if we become stuck in rebellion, as unfortunately many UU congregations do, and in railing against others whose faults we see only very clearly, we will not have the time, the attention, the energy for the faith journey I have mentioned. Furthermore, and perhaps just as importantly, we will fail to be attractive to the public if we do not define ourselves positively in ways that meet the fundamental needs of people rather than negatively. I am more interested in starting a dialogue than providing neat answers. I hope you will join me in this dialogue. I look further to our mutual journey in this discussion. Thank you. Thank you, Joy. And I would like to give a shout out to the technical crew that made today's service possible, especially so since this is the first time we did it without Jack Campbell's help. So Jack is on a exceedingly well-deserved respite from this weekly duty, and the crew that he left responsible for today's service did a marvelous job. I thank you. I encourage you to come to my breakout room should you be interested in discussing the themes of the sermon further. The words I share with you for extinguishing our chalice and for our benediction are from Reverend Sarah Lawal. It's entitled, "In the Silence." Spirit of life and love, in the silence, in the stillness, we hear the call of our own heart, its tender dreams, its sorrows and triumphs. In the silence, in the stillness, we hear whispers of days gone by, of dreams still becoming, the promise of the future. We celebrate together. Our individual journeys and dreams, and our collective ones too, we honor and celebrate, knowing the journey is so much richer with others to share in it. And so, in the name of all that is holy and good and enriches our lives and brings us love, we make this prayer. Amen.